All right, here again, like we were speaking of, that it's important to understand that whatever you continuously hear and continuously see that's in front of you, your subconscious will end up accepting. So you have to be. Okay, so I believe we got enough information about the King Alfred plan. I covered that a little bit in the last video, and I believe Josh covered that also too. So we're going to move on and just show you what's out there now and how we got to be mindful of what we talked about before. If you don't know about the King Alfred plan, just research it. There's information out there about it. But I covered this and Josh covered this in the last video. So we got as much information on it where you can see it and understand it overall. And if anybody want this PowerPoint presentation, just let me know. We'll send it to you. But last time we talked about the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, attack on us now, which is called identity extremists. I remember I was telling you about the first person that was identified with this, and we're going to give you his story and let you see this. Black identity extremist. So let's look at that. We got about 2 more videos, and then we're going to close out.
Ram through my door, which woke me and my son up. They had Kevlar helmets with night vision, AR-15s with full body armor. There was military Humvees with machine gun mounts. I saw ATF out here, FBI, terrorist task force, local Dallas police. Had to be between 50 and 70 agents. Federal agent come and explain to me that the reason why they're arresting me was due to weapons. And I'm thinking, like, weapons of mass destruction, what type of weapons are you looking for?
In the early morning hours of December 12, 2017, former Marine and Black activist Christopher Daniels, aka Rakim Balagoon, was arrested at his home for unlawful gun possession. So what would warrant such a dramatic arrest and a possible jail sentence of 10 years? According to a leaked FBI document, there's a new group of domestic terrorists, Black identity extremists. In May of 2018, a judge rejected the firearms charge, and Rakim was released.
We're currently at the prison where Rakim was held for the past 6 months, but he's just been freed. So we're going to link up with him and learn more about what's going on. Hey, man. How you doing, Rakim?
Hey, good to see you, man.
It's good to see you, man. Yeah, welcome back, man.
You know, it's good to be out here in the free world.
You're the first potential case of a Black identity extremist. How do you feel about that?
This when I found out I was on a terrorist watch list. My thing was, like, wow, I would never know that I was going to be the first person to be targeted. You know, I deal with mainly activists and people in the community who are regular working class people. How is this a threat to the government? I don't know.
What's going on through your mind now? You know, people in your community have been calling you a political prisoner.
There is a little bit of frustration. You know, that's 5 to 6 months of my life that I can't get back. You know, I lost an apartment. I had a newborn daughter, as well as I have a 15-year-old son, an 11-year-old son. And it's been a big impact on my family and finances. Good to see y'all as well. So, man.
Rakim was greeted at home by family and members of Guerrilla Mainframe, the Black activist group that Rakim co-founded. On their website, Guerrilla Mainframe describes themselves as a community-based political organization. Their activities include food drives, self-defense classes, weapons training, and open carry neighborhood patrols. It was these kinds of activities, which are visible across Guerrilla Mainframe and Rakim's social media accounts, that Rakim believes made him a target of the FBI.
Considering the politicized nature in which Rakim has been absent, can you guys speak about what's been going on within the organization?
we knew what we wanted to do in terms of making sure that he knows that people on the outside support him, and also get his story out and expose the contradictions as best as we could. I'm just so happy, being that they offered him a plea bargain, and he didn't take the plea bargain. That just shows dedication. He was able to endure what a lot of us, myself included, would have been broken. I mean, he's the warrior.
Rakim was living in this apartment complex when he was raided by the FBI in the middle of the night in December of 2017. Looking around, it's incredibly residential, so I can see that it would definitely make a scene and people would question why the FBI terror squad would be here in the middle of the night.
We were forced to walk from this door out here, come out like this, stop, turn around, walk backwards, and once we got here, put our hand behind our backs.
They snatched me right out the way, like forcefully, and handcuffed me. All guns, aimed on me.
The FBI seized 2 firearms, along with a book called Negroes with Guns, a famous nonfiction work by civil rights activist Robert F. Franklin. The book was said to be a huge influence on Huey P. Newton, the founder of the Black Panthers. As events unfolded, Rakim discovered that he'd been under FBI surveillance for 2 years, and that he'd be held without bond.
They said I couldn't receive bond due to the fact that I was on social media, not empathizing with police officers who have been killed while in duty, and also due to a protest I did in Austin. Pretty much that as a whole, that makes me a threat to the community.
And that's all I'm saying. Like, whatever you're doing, you can't be on social media just saying any and everything, because they're looking for a reason to come get you and then ramp up all kind of charges against you, because you can be considered as a threat. We don't know how many of us right now are in surveillance, right? So we have to be mindful of the things that we're just saying. Everything that come to our mind can't be said on social media. We can't video broadcast every little thing that we do. You see what I'm saying? You got to get out of your mind trying to get a name this big and trying to do all that type of stuff, because it can end up being your demise. Some stuff you have to begin to move a certain type of way. You see what I'm saying? Because you don't want things to happen before it's time. So again, we have to learn from the past and things right up on us. So we won't put ourselves in a compromising situation where they can take advantage of us and ramp up charges with no bail.
Rakim's FBI surveillance began in March of 2015, after he participated in a protest against police brutality. The FBI learned about the protest from a video that was posted on the YouTube page for InfoWars, the far-right conspiracy theorist site run by Alex Jones.
People were saying that the Black Panthers are out here doing an open carry march. So obviously we got to go try and find these guys and, of course, see what the people out here at South by Southwest think about a bunch of guns in their face.
Then separately, on July 7th, 2016, Micah X. Johnson opened fire on a group of police in Dallas and killed 5 officers.
Dude, that's a cop down. Yeah, there's 4 cops down.
On the 1-year anniversary of the shootings, Rakim posted multiple times to Facebook expressing solidarity with Micah X.
It baffles me, to be put in the same categorization as people who run planes into the Twin Towers.
Considering that you admired the tactics that Micah Johnson took against the police, would you say that's anything that Guerrilla Mainframe or yourself would actively do or pursue?
No, Guerrilla Mainframe, our goal is to educate the people, and we educate the people through political education. We believe in self-defense, but we don't believe in attacking the state, because we feel that that's what the state wants you to do.
Those statements that you put on Facebook, do you recognize why the police would take that as a threat against the state?
No, I don't, because there has not been anything that I've done physically to say that I pose as a threat. My political opinion does not affect one law enforcement agent or police officer.
On August 3rd, 2017, the FBI created the Black Identity Extremist Assessment, using the Dallas 2016 shooting and 5 other unrelated attacks on police as justification that this movement exists.
Look at that. That's
Black
crazy.
identity extremists now considered
Watch the
a domestic
indoctrination.
terror threat by the FBI.
According to the FBI assessment, it was very likely that these terrorists would target law enforcement officers in retaliation for perceived police violence against African Americans. Due to the assessment classifying the group as a domestic terror organization, the FBI is able to justify any invasive surveillance tactics used in monitoring these targeted individuals.
Why is there an attack on black activists versus any reports dealing with the alt-right and the white nationalists? Can you answer that question quickly?
I'm not aware.
Anyone investigating that?
When was that report completed?
In August of 2017.
I'm not aware of. I have not studied that report.
There's this perception that the government promotes that we are in a stage of critical emergency because of terrorism. And that's because they get more power. And in order to retain that power, they need to find more terrorists.
One of the most outspoken critics of the Black Identity Extremist Assessment is Michael German, a former FBI agent who did undercover work on white supremacists and right-wing militias in the 90s. He's now a fellow for the Brennan Center for Justice.
What incentive do you believe that the FBI has to make a label like Black Identity Extremists?
A person cannot be targeted for investigation based solely on First Amendment activity. So by creating this Black identity extremism movement, they can use that as the justification to then target any activist or any black person who is protesting police violence. One of my problems with this kind of intelligence report is these are 6 disparate acts of violence that they try to mold into a movement. There was really nothing connecting them except the fact that they killed police officers and the fact that they were black. They don't have shared ideologies. They are not associated with one another. They weren't part of the same groups. They weren't even in the same state and city for the most part. There is no such thing as the Black Identity Movement. I've never heard Black Lives Matter activists refer to themselves as a Black identity extremist, right? It's sort of a made-up term that is used as an umbrella to cover anyone who is black and an activist. And really
That's
anyone
right.
who is black and has concerns about police violence or discrimination, they know that if they use this broad label, the police agencies receiving it will know who it applies to and can make it basically apply to anyone they want.
Why is this extremism being pushed throughout the FBI on these minority groups?
Any government sees protest against its own policies as threatening, right? That's a political threat, but it has an incentive to present that political threat as a security threat to the nation. This is a persistent problem. This is something that's happening now and has pretty much happened all along.
Critics of the Black Identity Extremist label have drawn comparisons to COINTELPRO. COINTELPRO was a series of covert and at times illegal actions carried out by the FBI from 1956
So we
to 1971.
basically seeing that this thing it ain't got nothing to stand upon. It's basically like the man said, an umbrella to be able to identify who they want to target and have justification for coming at these different groups. And any of us, and think about one of the greatest groups right now in our time that's happening all over the world that is embracing their identity is who? The Hebrew Israelites. The Hebrew Israelites. Embracing our identity, taking our heritage back, and now what? We got the FBI with an incentive, destructive program against us doing that. And we can be labeled as domestic terrorists. And now I want to show you that this is happening right now. And with this couple right here, you're going to be able to see, because they are Hebrew Israelites, what they was claiming. They was identified as Black identity extremists, and they were both given jail time. I'm just going to play the video and let you look at it. And let you see. I'm going to let you see how the system is stacked up against us.
This video I was just shared yesterday, And I said, when I heard this, I really want you guys to hear what happened to this family. The state of Maryland haven't seen their children over a year.
We should have did this video for a while, but we were going through the trial process, so let's get a few things out the way. First and foremost, the CPS stole our children in Elkton, Maryland, and we haven't seen them for over a year from the date that they took them, which was on 1/13/2016, and they actually threw us in jail. First, I would like to say that when these things happen, we homeschooled, we eat all organic foods, we make our clothes, we make soap, we make lotion, we keep the commandments of the Most High. We're very pious and diligent. We got a good rapport amongst the people. Close-knit family. A lot of brothers and sisters, they either stayed at our house or visited family that's been around us. And the thing that we're going to bring out now is what led up to this situation. So, for a few years now, we've always had a problem with, which was my stepdaughter, my wife's daughter, and I've accepted as my own, as I raised as my own, with different boys and different problems outside of the home. Whether it was fighting in school, whether it was sneaking out at night, and several times we had to call the police because she had snuck out and we didn't know where she was at. We fast forward to a situation where we had a brother stand in our home, and my stepdaughter built up a friendship at some point with him. And it came to a head when she came to us and said that she loved him and she wanted to leave with him. And obviously me and my wife were pissed off. We were angry. And we said, no, that's not happening, you know. So immediately I went to go confront him, which he wasn't in the home. We had a confrontation at the door. My stepdaughter was there. We had a scuffle at the door. And to make a long story short, my stepdaughter ended up running off with him that day and going to Detroit. Now, this was an Israelite brother. This is a brother that's supposed to keep the commandments. This is a brother that took our kindness for granted and, you know, did something that put us in a very bad situation regarding where our daughter was at, particularly with him. So after we had got her back, after several days of being in Detroit, you know, it was like our daughter was, mentally she was with him. She didn't want to let him go. So what ended up happening is that we had a situation where a cell phone was taken from her regarding calling boys that was over age. He was 27, she was 15. Me and my sons were out, and my wife called me, asking me about a cell phone that we had taken from our daughter because she was misbehaving with it, calling different guys, and we wasn't having it. When she took the phone, my stepdaughter, she attacked my wife, and she ran out the house. She ran out the house because I guess she wanted to be with this boy or whoever she was trying to be with, and when she had got with the police, or got with the CPS, when she went to a neighbor's house, she pretty much gave them this long story about how we were trying to seclude her and keep her away from her friends and all these things. No more than 3 weeks later, or maybe 2 months later, I believe it was 2 months later, we were getting our house raided, and two weeks after that, we were thrown in jail. We were thrown in jail, and where they claimed that we were Hebrew Israelite terrorists, or black Hebrew Israelite terrorists, and that we were a threat to society. We had a $150,000 bail. Or was it $300,000?
It was $350,000.
$350,000 a piece was our bill, because they said we were extremists, because we homeschooled and we followed the Bible, that we were so-called black Hebrew Israelites, as I said before. Me and my wife ended up bailing out, which that was unexpected to them. And during the time that they had incarcerated us, we had left our children with a brother, a very dear brother, that was staying in our home. And they pretty much took our kids from him, saying that he wasn't the caregiver of the children. What's strange about this is that when they raided our home, mind you, they raided our home because they said that we locked our daughter in her room for 7 months. and then for 2 months or whatever the situation was that they claim happened, which never happened, they came to our home to take her diary and to take belts that you hold your pants up with. And this is essentially what they took from our home, where they found homeschooling materials, where they saw picture arts that was on the wall, where they saw plants that we had planted together, where they had saw the food that we ate, everything organic, spending $1,800 a month on food. So after they had raided our home, they come back 2 weeks later when they decided to get a warrant for us, and they come and our caregiver or our brother who was watching our children because they had detained us, and they make up an excuse to intimidate him and get in our home. Once they got in our home, they decided that they were going to take our children from him. Once they took our children, which was on 1/13/2016, a family that had always been together. I mean, let's say 1/13/2016. It was actually 1/13/2016. We haven't seen our kids in over a year. A year. We're sitting here at March 7th right now, and we haven't seen our children because we were labeled as religious extremists, that we were accused of locking my stepdaughter in her room for 7 months, would never happen. We were accused of starving our youngest daughter because the case was to be built that Hebrew Israelites don't like women, so the case was to be built that the girls were singled out for mistreatment. Now, mind you, when my stepdaughter had gave them the report that she gave to them, she said that she was singled out because she was the outcast of the family. Is that everybody else was treated good and she was the only one treated bad. But the wicked thing about the CPS, or Child Protective Service, or Child Protective Stealing Services, once they get in your house, they wreak havoc. I've read in reports about me and my wife of some of the most vicious things I've ever seen in my life. And I can expect these things from them. But some of the things they wrote about us to try to get charges placed on us was just outright crazy. So once we went back to court, we went to family court, we had a visit that was supposed to be scheduled with our children. What happens? They get a second indictment and reincarcerate us. Now our bail is $750,000.
At the courthouse, they reincarcerate us.
At the courthouse, as my wife said, they reincarcerate. Our bail is $750,000. Mind you, me and my wife have never been convicted of any crime. Me and my wife have never done anything that anybody has accused of committing a crime. $750,000, like we're a part of Al Qaeda or something. Like we're running around with ISIS or something. This is what $750,000. Obviously, they expected us never to get out of jail. They didn't think we had family or friends or anybody to get us out of jail at all. So we're sitting in jail for $750,000 bail. We're in jail with people who, our bail is 600,000 times the next person. 600,000. Nowhere near what our bail is. Why? Because now they're saying that our daughter is vitamin D deficient. Mind you, they know that we basically eat a vegetarian diet. Mind you, our daughter had never been sick, not one time. Mind you, we told them that we have videos and pictures of damn near every day of her life because we love our kids that much, which we're going to show some of those things while we're on here. So we're sitting in jail for about 4 months. We get bailed out. Our families come together and bail us out. Mind you, this caused a great rift within our families. Because, mind you, the accusation is, again, that we're religious extremists. They wanted to deny us bail. They said that we're a threat to society. Mind you, me and my wife have never been convicted of anything. Never nothing. And they use the very things that are lawful for us to do, like homeschooling. My wife went from working 5 days a week to 2 days so we can both homeschool the kids and spend time with the kids. We took them out of school because we felt like they were not getting the proper education in school. Our daughter struggled with math until she was in the 7th grade. She's in the 7th grade counting like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7th grade. When I was growing up, 3 times 3 was 9. When I was growing up, 7 times 7 was 49. You didn't have to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when we're homeschooling our kids and we're spending the time with our kids and we're taking the time to teach them how to grow things, to make soap, to make lotions, to do all these things on your own, to medicate with herbs and things like that. These people are using these things against us to say, hey, listen, we're these extremists and we just don't like going to the hospital, even if something's wrong, which was wrong in the first place. We had our children at the hospital. We could have got a midwife and had them somewhere in the backwoods. You know, our kids got a rash. We took them to the hospital, even though we treated it ourselves. Our son had an eye problem. We treated it with an eye patch, which is standard procedure for those whose child get what's the name of the strabismus. These are all the things that we were doing, and they knew that we were doing. You think it mattered to them? No, it did not. No, it did not. From the very first day, which was on 1/15 or 1/16. We had family members ready to take our kids. But because the state of Maryland wanted to build a case against me and my wife, they conspired and kept our kids for over a year. Over a year. We still have not seen them. Let alone seen them. 3 times they have actually given us updates on our kids. We're reading things in these reports talking about our kids won't eat the food. My daughter won't eat. But when we get to court and we go to trial, they're blaming this on me and my wife. So what do? Because these people are vicious and malice, they tried to make a case that we're these monsters, these religious monsters, these black Hebrew Israelites who hate women, and that we don't feed our daughter. This is their case. They're saying that we fed our daughter water. This is how we were nourishing her. This is what they said. So, mind you, not knowing that we're the type of people to take every picture and every video of everything our children do, we go to trial. My trial is one trial, my wife is another. Thinking that this is going to go away, knowing that this is an affliction that these nations is bringing upon us, and that the Most High is going to deliver us out of. So we're there. Then I'm showing pictures of our daughter with her quinoa milk. Showing pictures of our daughter eating oatmeal and apples and different nuts in there. That's very nutritious. This is the daughter that they tried to say was malnourished. This is 3 weeks before they took her from the home. 3 weeks. Presented these in court to an all-white jury.
Wow, all-white jury.
And you'll hear how that went in a minute. This is my wife breastfeeding, which they know that we breastfeeded our daughter up until the time she left. She was breastfed. This is the clothes that we've made our daughter, or my wife made, when she was about, 8 months? 6 months?
4 months.
About 4 months. This is the person that they're saying we hate so much. This is the person that they're saying that we tried to starve to death. We don't have any pictures from 19. This is a picture of our refrigerator when we did live there, because while we were in jail, we got evicted from our home. While we were in jail. As you see, vegetables and fruits. So when I did my trial and the doctor got up there and said that, vegetarians have a 3 times harder chance to get vitamin D than most people. Well, I got a lot of repeats in here, but I showed the breast. This is just some of the pictures. We have hundreds and hundreds of pictures. So while my wife is going through these pictures, but the doctor that they had, they said that our daughter could not stand. This is a picture of our daughter 2 days before they took her. They had a doctor come in and said our daughter couldn't even stand. Provided pictures inside the courtroom, said that's a lie. These people did not expect us to have pictures and videos of every day of our daughter's life that we love. These people was like, no, these are monsters. Mind you, it's not on the 10 o'clock news.
See, hey, it's important, man. That's why it's important to spend time with your family. It's important to take pictures, to take videos, not to post them on Facebook, online, but just to have them with you. Because when they went into that courtroom, they had the doctors paid off, they had the medical paid off, they had everything, the nutritionist paid off, and gave them an all-white jury. They had everything stacked against them that they would have no way out. Now, they didn't expect them to have video of their daughter, because they said now that his daughter couldn't even stand or walk, and he got pictures and videos of his daughter running around, playing, and look how wicked the system is just to get them, to make them be, to justify having a black identity extremist label or interrogation or a thing of that nature, to be able to keep it going against people of color. Let's show you how wicked this nation is and the wicked the judicial system is. Let's keep going. I'm telling you, family, those of us that are pulling our children out of school, those of us that are growing our own foods, having our own nutrition, having our own medical stuff, man, we have to be mindful, because right now those things are deemed as domestic terrorism, being self-sufficient. But nevertheless, we're going to do it, but we just have to be mindful. We have to watch. They're definitely going to be trying to get us. Those of us that's not allowing our children to be vaccinated, it's going to be crimes and different things against that. So we have to have proof of our children being healthy, different things of that nature. If you have to go to private doctor, different ones like that, just something to be able to have a record of your children's health and different things like that. So we won't have different things like this to try to happen and try to come against us, overall. We just have to be mindful and pray that the Most High keep us.
It's not on the 6 o'clock news. It's not on any news outlet. It's just happening under the table. They did it's supposed to be an ICPC investigation to get my mother the kids while we were incarcerated unjustly. These people a year later still haven't given over the case. Because they wanted to hold our children while the state tried to build the case. This is our daughter inside her playpen. This is her inside her playpen in December of 2015. Mind you, they took her 1/13/2016. They said she couldn't stand. They made it look like she was completely incapacitated. They said, the doctor said that my daughter couldn't crawl. So I bring out a video of my daughter crawling to me, and I don't know if I can, I got the video on my computer, and we're going to play this video for you, because because seeing as though nobody knows about this stuff happening, and now that we have already been convicted, yes, we've been convicted of severe neglect for child abuse. Yes, this is what they convicted of, all white jury. After seeing pictures, after bringing in witnesses, that people who've lived in our home, to watch the CPS get up on the stand and lie, to watch the police get on there and lie, not providing one witness. So I'm going to say this as a fact. There is no such thing as a black man or a black woman who can ever go to trial in America and watch a jury of their peers and get vindicated. Most people don't have half the evidence that we have. We're going to turn the camera around so you can see this video. This is our daughter crawling that they said couldn't even, that their so-called specialist said couldn't even crawl. I'm going to flip the camera around so y'all can see it. Let me see if I can.
Mama, you taking your head wrap off?
This is my daughter. They said couldn't crawl.
What are you doing?
When the evidence was provided in court, it didn't matter to nobody because they didn't think we had it. This is the daughter they're trying to say that we black Hebrew Israelites hate women. Here I am, married to one, got a mother, got daughters that I love dearly, that I haven't seen her in over a year, me or my wife.
What are you doing, Mama? Mama, what are you doing? Why you take your hair wrap off? You look so pretty. You look so pretty. Mama, what are you doing?
This is my daughter, who they tried to say was malnourished, who they tried to say was vitamin D deficient, and it was some type of severe neglect from us because we're vegetarians or vegans, and that we didn't provide the sufficient amount of vitamin D.
That's what an Israelite woman's supposed to have on her head, a head wrap. You don't agree with that? You gotta stop chewing on your head wrap, mama.
You can stop that one, man. So, that video right there was the video that we showed in court. Now, the doctor who had said that she couldn't crawl and she couldn't stand, when we provided these things, the state was, we wasn't prepared for this. We didn't know that Mr. Harris, which is my slave name, saying as though they won't allow me to be called by my Hebrew name, Mr. Harris. When they saw the videos and the pictures, they said they want all the evidence thrown out. They said it was prejudicial to the state. So the judge allowed them to bring back their doctor, who obviously had lied, who said that she couldn't stand, who obviously said that she couldn't crawl, who said that we only fed her water, which they made that up on their own. Nobody told them this. They didn't have not one person that said some craziness like that. But this is their case. So when me and my wife provide videos, and matter of fact, put another video on. When we provided videos and pictures that was contrary, they bring the doctor back. So what does the doctor say? Oh, these videos and pictures must be from months ago. They couldn't possibly be from the date that we said it was. There's nowhere in the world she could be able to stand and crawl in the condition that they saw her in. So it makes me wonder, what happened from the time they took our daughter on the 13th to the time they went to the hospital on the 21st? From the CPS reports, they're saying that she wasn't even eating the food. But I forgot. They expect to take your children, put the child in another home, take them from their parents, that's the only people they've ever known, not get any instructions from the families, because they didn't do that. We're sitting in jail. They didn't ask us nothing. What does your daughter eat?
Wow.
What does your daughter drink? They just take your child like she's some type of animal and say, hey, listen, let us place you wherever we want. Psychologically, you should be able to adapt. Psychologically, you should be able to eat whatever they give to you. You shouldn't have no drawback. There should be no hurt in you. They show video of our daughter crying and wondering why she's crying. Never thinking, oh, she might want her parents. But no, they're saying that it's us. They're saying that me and my wife, we should be able to take your kids and place them wherever. You can do that with a dog. But we should be able to do that with your children. Why your daughter not thriving with where we placed her? You know what? Our daughter and our sons, which we'll get to him in a second, they can't be missing their parents. They couldn't possibly sitting there giving food that they've never been given before from people they don't know. But all because the state want to build a case against me and my wife. So, going to the point where we were bailed out and realizing that, we're going to go to trial, which we knew from the door already, and trying to get a lawyer on both our parts, which my wife had a state-appointed lawyer, and I had a lawyer that was appointed, but then I ended up getting a lawyer that we paid for. And it wasn't much time, so they put in for a motion to get a postponement in the trial so they can prepare for all this so-called discovery that the state said they had, which I told them from the beginning they didn't have anything. Me and my wife told our lawyers to dispute the panel. A jury of their peers is not a jury of our peers. It has nothing to do with racism. But this is the thing. You go in there, and they know, being in Elkton, Maryland, a so-called black man, you go in there, you got a white judge, so-called white judge. You got all white men on the walls, which is their fathers that preceded them. You got a white state's attorney who's accusing you of all these things, and then you have an all-white jury. I had one black juror in the whole jury.
And I had one, but she was an alternate.
Wow.
It's no way you can go into a courtroom like that and get vindicated. No way. The state didn't provide not one in-house witness. Even our stepdaughter, who was so angry with us because we didn't let her be with this boy. And the state trying to come at us to try to file charges on him. When she was on the stand, they asked her, hey, listen, what was his name? She wouldn't even tell them. But she wanted to protect him and get on the stand and lie on her stepfather, the one who had raised her. Problems we had for years. The same issue. This guy here, this guy there. But what's funny to me is that when the state has a witness, it's a witness testifying of the facts. But when a defendant has witnesses, these are just people trying to cover for you. It's funny how that works. All the people who lived in my home, they made a case that people like us who want to abuse do it in secret. Go ahead, baby. Never mind the fact that we've always had somebody living in our home because we always had the space. We had the detective, which was Lindsay Ziegenfuss. Let's just get the stuff out there. Our names is in the paper. From Elkton, Maryland. Testified that our caregiver, Timothy Baker, who lived in our home, they said that when they raided our home, mind you, I never heard of a raid to come get a diary and to come get some belts. But just to embarrass us in our neighborhood and to try to make it look more criminal, to make us look as criminal as possible, because, you know, they used to run it down on homes where black people were selling drugs or whatever the case may be. Just to make us look as criminal as possible, they raid our home for a damn diary. And some spatulas. And some belts. That's it. This is what they raid our home for. So they when they come, our caregiver, Timothy Baker, which is Ahazia, our brother, is with our children at that time. They run his ID. It comes back. They check his identification. This is on December 29th, 2015. 2 weeks later, after they had arrested us, they come back later on with Child Protective Services. They already know he's there. They already checked him out because when the detective got on the stand, she said, hey, you know, we had already checked out Timothy Baker. He was a capable man. There was nothing wrong with him. But when they came back 2 weeks later with the CPS or the Child Protective Services, then they want to act like they couldn't identify him. Then they want to make up some story about how he didn't have enough numbers to his Social Security number. So mind you, my lawyers are cross-examining the CPS worker, Kirsten Berkowitz, on the stand. And she's talking about, oh, well, we couldn't identify him. But 2 weeks before, he had already been identified. What was the purpose of you going there talking about you wanted to see if he was a proper caregiver for the children? How are you going to see if he's a proper caregiver when you know nothing about us? They didn't have not one case with our children. They don't know what our needs and our wants are. We had left our children with somebody we trusted. They go there talking about, well, we have to make sure that this person is a proper caregiver. So they intimidate him and then steal our kids from him. This is in their reports. They surrounded him and took our children. Mind you, you got the state's attorney talking about she gave a good faith indictment against me and my wife because she wanted access to our other children. Mind you, this is at a hearing. You gave a good faith indictment to get access to our children. How does an indictment guarantee you get access to our children? Because they had already known they were going to try to take our children. Once they took our children, they were going to build up a case against me and my wife at all costs. We sat there and went through this whole process being villainized for homeschooling. They tried to say that when we did homeschool, we didn't even teach our kids. But yet we have progress reports where they was commending us from the things that our children were learning. Reading books like Josephus, reading books like Philo, reading books like Babylon and Timbuktu. Finally counting what I have in the count on one hand. They said that we wasn't properly homeschooling our kids, but when they raided our home, they had videos and pictures of our garage with nothing but books and homework assignments.
I just wanted to show you what's out there, man. What is happening? This stuff is real and it's really happening. And I just wanted to warn you so you can see what we got against us and what's going on. That'll help you see. But then if the Most High be for us, who can be against us? And the same thing happened in another case with another lady homeschooling her children. She took her children out of school, and they took her children away.
a story going on of a young sister by the name of Kiara Harris. Now, she had 2 children in the Buffalo Public School District, and she noticed her children was failing, so she wanted to homeschool them to give them a better education, and she followed all the procedures they said for her to follow, and yet CPS came and took her children and even arrested her. Let's go roll the clip.
I felt like the system was failing my children, and that's when I made the decision to homeschool.
Single mother Kiara Harris was fed up. She says her 2 elementary school-aged children weren't excelling at their failing Buffalo public schools. So she filed these documents at Buffalo City Hall, informing the district of her intent to homeschool her children. According to the documents she provided to 7 Eyewitness News, they're dated December 7th, 2016, and the district says here it received her paperwork.
I spoke directly to the homeschool coordinator, and she told me that from this point on, my children were officially unenrolled from school.
But she says a week later, CPS called, wondering why her kids weren't in school.
I told them that my children were homeschooled now, and I said that I can furnish the documents if they need to see it.
Harris says she went on with her homeschooling, but then, less than a month later,
I was confronted by the CPS workers and the Buffalo Police Department, and they said, well, it's too late now to show these papers. The judge has already made the order. We have to take your children. But they never did show me the order, and so since they didn't show me the order, I said, well, I'm not just going to give you my children, and from that point, they arrested me and said that I was obstructing the court order.
Harris says she hasn't seen her 2 children in 3 weeks. They've been living in a foster care institution.
I'm just a mother whose children have been torn from her arms.
The Buffalo Public School District says it cannot comment on this case due to federal laws, but says in order for a parent to file for homeschooling, they must have full custody of the children. Harris says she's a single parent and always has had full custody until her kids were taken away.
All of the documents were signed properly.
A member of the District Parent Coordinating Council says someone dropped the ball.
It should not have happened. Someone along the way, anywhere in the process after December 7th should have simply said, wait a minute, CPS should not be in here. The principal should have been circled back to and said, these students were unenrolled.
This homeschool parent is under attack.
Inside Erie County Family Court, a judge denying the request to reunite single mother Kiara Harris and her 2 children after nearly 4 weeks apart, instead granting Harris 2 hours per week of supervised visitation with Catholic Charities workers.
I requested the immediate vacation of the order that removed them from their mother's custody, or in the alternative, unsupervised visitation. And then another attorney on the case suggested that my client's mother be the supervisor, and that was rejected by the court as well.
The trauma and duress that these children are going through right now and not being with their mother is unconscionable.
Harris's case is going national. The college-educated single Buffalo parent says she tried to homeschool her children, but instead ended up in jail for obstructing a court order to remove her kids for educational neglect.
This can happen to anyone.
Harris's story is being followed by Buffalo Common Council member Ulysses Wingo, who was in court Thursday. He took to Facebook Live with Harris's attorney Vanessa Geit to talk about the case.
If you, in good faith, put in your letter of intent and at that point begin to homeschool your children and not send them to school anymore, at that point, if the school is not communicating with the district and the district is not communicating with the school, you are educationally neglecting your children.
One thing can trigger the next thing, which can literally make your life implode upon itself.
County workers in court citing what Harris's lawyer calls baseless allegations from her past as to why she shouldn't have her kids back.
Her allegations did not rise to the level that it constituted imminent danger.
Now, she posted a full video explaining some things that the school was doing prior to CPS showing up. And I want you to watch that video as well to hear a full explanation. It's about a 16-minute long video. But with this situation with Kiara Harris, this is completely wrong. Any parent has a right to homeschool their children. And we know in public schools, if you don't live in an area where the income is high, you may not have certain opportunities for your children. Maybe the school that her children was going to, the teacher didn't care enough to make sure that her child was passing. And why is it that CPS is being called behind school? The children wasn't beaten. They wasn't abused. They wasn't starving. They had a place to stay. You're going to rip children out of the home of a parent because of school, especially when the paperwork was done, everything that was right was in order, and yet you still did this anyway. You didn't try to communicate with her other than the first time that you called. You went behind her back with a judge to take her children from the home. You see, what I do not like about things in this country is that the government controls your own children. It is your choice how you want to educate your children. And most states have laws where you can homeschool your children. But some of these cities and counties and schools don't want to lose children, because you need to understand every child that's in school is money. And any child that is not in a school, that's state and federal funds, that school is not going to get. So they're probably really against homeschooling parents, which is totally wrong. Now, the only thing that I saw with her situation that I would have did a little different, her letter of intent, because I read the full law. And the law states that you must turn in your letter of intent by July the 1st prior to the school year, or 14 days before you start homeschooling. Now, I would have typed up that letter. I would have put all the statutes in the law, which talks about the letter of intent, talk about the education curriculum, submitting the paperwork to the district, submitting the paperwork to the city council in that city. I would have had all that written down in there. I would have made them sign it, of course, with myself, and I would have got it notarized. Then, once I got it notarized, I would have scanned and emailed right back to that person that signed it, and would have copied the assistant principal and the principal of the school. I would have did the same thing with the district myself. I would have went up there to the district, wrote them a letter quoting the law and stating what I did with this school. Once I would have gotten the district to sign the letter that I type up, I would do the same thing. I would have got it notarized, scanned and emailed it to the person that signed it, and to the assistant superintendent and the superintendent. The reason why I'm saying I would do all that is because, in the past, I had to do that to save myself from certain things too. Because some people drop the ball, or some people is dishonest. So you don't know what to do. So look at this whole situation. There's something different that I would have done. That way, if they would have came at me, I would have had a mountain of paperwork, signatures, emails, and I would have been suing them, in which she should sue them, because it's not right for those children to be taken away from her. You know how many children get put in foster homes? I've done stories on them when children have been molested, children have been beaten, children have even been killed in foster care. I've done too many stories on that.
So this is why, like I'm saying, you just letting you see what's going on, because sometimes we don't see what's going on around us, and then when it happens to us, we get caught on the blind side, because we're not looking into things and making sure we're doing the best we can to prepare ourselves, prepare our families, and all those things. So it's important to keep a paper trail and make sure you have all your T's crossed and your I's dotted with anything you're doing, because they're looking for any loophole that they can take. And one of the worst things they can do is come in and try to take your children, man. I mean, and put them in foster care and different things of that nature, man. It's just it's insane. But this is letting you know that it's going on in different faucets in different areas. So we have to pay extra close attention, be mindful, understand how we need to move, and be led by the Most High. Allow Him to lead and guide us into the ways that we should go and what we shall do, because it's wickedness and craziness out here. So we just wanted to show you the information, and we're going to go to the next phase of about lobbying and how the information that you're putting out, that they are paying attention to all the information that you're putting out, the stuff that you're saying, all these social media platforms and all these type of things. You have to be mindful. You have to be careful, and especially if you're claiming to be an Israelite and you're going against the Jewish people. They got people out there just to gather information on that. But we'll be going to that next part in the next segment. For now, we'll see you in the next part. Shalom, shalom. All right, so family, this is why I say we have to be extremely careful. Because a lot of times, brother, a lot of times we look at things like this, and especially like our Facebook, Instagram, all those type of social media networks is a way to get information on us and even get the way we think, what we like. For somebody, just say COINTELPRO, this would be a beautiful time for, because those social media sites give us everything. We put family members on there. We put what we like, what we love. It's not hard to find our pattern, to be able to understand. Some of us put where we're going all the time, when we ain't home, what we're doing. All those things of information is a beautiful time right now for COINTELPRO, because any leader that tries to rise, all they have to do is go on Facebook and you will see. You'll see what they think. You'll see what they did last night. You'll pick up their patterns, all these type of things. So this is why I'm saying, with social media, we have to be mindful. We have to be careful of the things that we're posting, the things that we're putting on there. Because it is people's job that's within this government, COINTELPRO, and things of that nature, that it's their job to specifically gather information, and especially those that are information against, that's anti-Israel in the sense of Jewish people, and they definitely get information on it. That's why we have to be mindful of who we come around, who we allow around us. This is one of the reasons that I say, even the time that we did the semi debate with Harry, stuff like that, we got to be mindful of, because we are allowing people. We don't know if he's a part of this pro-Israel lobby. We don't know if he's coming over here gathering information on the non-camp affiliated Israelites, that he can be gathering information to show who leaders are there within there and taking it back. So we have to be mindful of who we allow in our circles, in our arenas, on our platforms, because it's not just to because we'll look at it as a intelligence things, or who know more scripture, or who can, or almost like a WWE type of intellectual comeback when it comes to things like that. And we have to be mindful, because a lot of times we looking at it, we want to check him, we want to show them that they ain't the people, and their whole purpose could be just to gather information on you, while you thinking it's one thing, going back and forth, fussing, trying to make them look stupid, and trying to make them look like they don't know nothing. Their whole purpose could be, I just want to gather information. I want to be able to take names back, to know who these people are, and they need to watch these people. But we get so puffed up in our knowledge that we can miss that. And I became a victim of that, even when we had did that that day. So we have to be careful. We have to be mindful. I'm gonna show you something that's brewing, and this on a small level at that time. But now you got to think about how big of a range that they can take this to gather information and to analyze your information. So let's look at this and let's be mindful. Let me see if I can get it there. There we go.
In the first series of The Lobby, Al Jazeera's investigative unit exposed the role of pro-Israel operatives in Britain.
The headlines at 11 o'clock.
Israel's ambassador to the UK has apologised after a senior diplomat was caught on camera saying he wanted to take down the Foreign Office Minister, Sir Alan Duncan.
Sir Alan Duncan, who's a strong critic of Jewish settlements.
An undercover reporter for Al Jazeera doing an investigation into Britain's relationship with Israel.
This investigation exposes a covert Israeli campaign to influence British policy.
The investigation led to the resignation of Shai Massot, a senior political officer at the Israeli embassy.
Mr. Massot is also heard describing the Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson as an idiot.
The diplomat in question no longer seems to be a functionary of the embassy in London. So whatever he may exactly have been doing here, his cover can be said to have been well and truly blown.
At the same time, Al Jazeera had been running a second undercover operation. Some of our reporters' covert filming was included in the first series of The Lobby. His identity became known.
Tony had spent 5 months inside the pro-Israel lobby in the United States. He'd impressed colleagues with his understanding of the Middle East.
You have the resourcefulness and the depth, to sort of think strategically about this, whereas most people aren't able to do that.
A prominent Jewish online magazine described Tony as the perfect gentleman who became one of the town's best-liked Zionist activists.
You did amazing work here. The guys don't stop talking about you. They still talk about you.
Tony threw elaborate parties, and apparently anyone interested in telling a story about sinister Israeli influence in America's capital couldn't have asked for a better guest list. In a new edition of The Lobby, we investigate the role of pro-Israel advocacy groups in this country in the first of a 4-part series, how the lobby is being drawn into Israel's covert campaign to spy on American citizens. Using an undercover reporter, Al Jazeera's investigative unit infiltrates one of the most powerful lobbies in the world.
Getting $38 billion in security aid to Israel matters, which is what AIPAC is doing.
We examine how the lobby, led by AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, has secured unwavering support in Congress.
Congressmen don't do anything unless you pressure them. The only way to do that is with money.
What the lobby is all about is to make sure that Israel gets special treatment from the United States forever.
But after occupying Palestinian lands for half a century, the pro-Israel lobby is facing a new challenge.
We called for a full boycott of Israel, divesting from it, and eventually imposing sanctions on it to achieve UN-stipulated rights of the Palestinian people.
A movement to boycott, divest, and impose sanctions on Israel, BDS, was formed on American campuses.
Seems to be achieving its goals, threatens future American support for Israel.
We believe in justice for all people. So that means the occupation has to end.
Israel's Ministry of Strategic Affairs responded with a covert operation to defeat BDS.
אתה צריך לעשות את זה עם הרבה מאוד עמימות. זה לא גוף צבאי היררכי שאם הרגנו את X, אז כל הגוף מתחתיו לא פועל.
So the Israeli government leverages Jewish organizations in the diaspora.
Absolutely.
It's a psychological campaign involving spying and smears.
Discredit the messenger as a way of discrediting the message.
Just stay on message. And what is that message? BDS is a hate movement.
While our reporter monitored pro-Israel groups, he was asked to go undercover for the lobby.
You're going into enemy territory, not for everybody.
We are a different government working on foreign soil, and we have to be very, very cautious. We have 3 different sub-campaigns which are very, very sensitive regarding data gathering, information analysis, working on activist organization, money trail. This is something that only a country with its resources can do the best. If we want to win, we have to change our ways. We have to think differently. And this is waging a holistic campaign against the other side. Take him out of his comfort zone. Make him be on the defensive.
Israel is involved in a secretive influence campaign whose aim is to discredit its challengers in the West.
In the Air Force, when you want to win, you have to have aerial superiority. If you want to win a campaign, you must have information superiority. And this is exactly the added value Israel capabilities, technological and otherwise, we can bring to the game, and we are working on that very hard.
In the United States, the lobby is working with Israel to spy on American citizens.
We're giving them data. For example, one day, SEMA's deputy sending me
photo, just a photo in WhatsApp. It's written boycott Israel on a billboard. In a few hours, our systems and analysts could find the exact organization, people, and even their names where they live. We gave it back to the ministry. I have no idea what we did with this. But in fact, 3 days later, there were no billboards.
We use all sorts of technology. We use corporate level, enterprise grade social media intelligence software. Almost all of this happens on social media. So
see,
we have
what I'm talking about the social media?
algorithms and
They're looking for stuff that's against
the stuff
pro-Israel. Now imagine somebody else calling themselves Israelite. They're gathering all kind of information.
In terms of like information sharing, we did add the Ministry of Strategic Affairs to our operations and intelligence brief, which kind of goes back to how do we get information about what's going on in American college campuses.
generally within about 30 seconds or less of one of these things popping up on campus, whether it's a Facebook event, whether it's the right kind of mention on Twitter. The system picks it up, it goes into a queue, and alerts our researchers, and they evaluate it, they tag it, and if it rises to a certain level, we issue early warning alerts to our partners.
They operate through subterfuge, and they walk a very thin line between the legal and illegal in what they do in order to gather information and to smear their opponents and ultimately destroy them. In order to understand how the pro-Israel lobby operates, you have to literally be a fly on the wall. If you can't obtain information publicly, you should try to get into the room through other means.
Our undercover reporter, Tony, is British and Jewish and had recently graduated from the University of Oxford. He wrote articles and presented himself as a strong supporter of Israel. In Washington, he attended a course on the Israel-Palestine conflict.
I'm from the UK, and I'm just taking a course at Georgetown here over the summer.
He networked in the social circles of the pro-Israel lobby.
Hi, I'm Rona. I'm Tony. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you. I'm good. Good to see you. Hey.
After building his profile, Tony was accepted on a training course in pro-Israel advocacy.
Welcome to Fuel for Truth DC's second boot camp. Congratulations, everyone, to being accepted. What we're going to do right now is just kind of like introduce ourselves. I'm Daniel. After undergrad, I served in the IDF and the paratroopers for 2 years and worked at APAC for a year.
One session criticized the UN agency that provides aid for Palestinians.
Children are taught in UNRWA Palestinian schools to hate Jews.
Another lecture dealt with the international media.
Confronting media bias. During the last war, a lot of times videos are circulating of bombed areas or victims, and a lot of it's from Syria, from Iraq 10 years ago, all this stuff.
In role-play workshops, they were instructed how to respond to criticism of Israel.
Can I have a volunteer? The part-time walls cutting up Palestine. Boycott Israel. Divest from Israel. Sanction companies that do business with Israel.
It's kind of odd to call it a wall, given that like 90% of it is fence.
This is a photo. I see a wall.
Why can't Israel do more to help, Tony?
Our undercover reporter played the role of pro-Israel advocate.
Israel is doing a lot to help the Palestinians. I say actually Israel is doing all the best that they can, but it's a tough situation.
The people, businesses in Gaza can't freely send their trucks into Israel to sell their goods.
I think you'll find that that's actually a misconception. They do allow their trucks, and what they don't allow is dangerous material.
Okay, stop.
After the course, Tony was accepted as a volunteer at a pro-Israel communications group called the Israel Project.
It's Tony Kleinfeld. Kleinfeld. Like Seinfeld, but with a K.
The Israel Project, known as TIP, describes itself on its promotional videos as a strategic communications group.
At TIP, we believe we've found the answer. Israel's enemies have left the battlefield of the Middle East and are now fighting on the battlefield of public opinion.
What you have with regard to the United States and Israel is a special relationship that is unprecedented in recorded history.
not simply that the United States gives Israel a tremendous amount of economic aid and diplomatic protection. It gives that aid and protection no matter what, right? It's not conditional, and the Israel Project will go to enormous lengths to achieve that end.
During his placement as a volunteer, Tony took notes on what he saw and heard in TIP's offices. He worked in what they called the war room, where media and communications are monitored. Staff described having contacts at numerous media organizations. Their primary means of influence is by forging friendships with reporters. One employee claimed that during talks on the nuclear deal with Iran, TIP applied pressure on the Associated Press news agency to change a headline. Tony read the Israel Project's annual report, which described TIP's mission as building an echo chamber for pro-Israel information. That means using the media to amplify and repeat TIP's messages, as well as what the report describes as neutralizing undesired narratives. Tony saw one document which claimed that the echo chamber was within their grasp. Weeks before he started, Tony discussed with a senior manager how TIP deals with the media.
Things that, they make a little too loudly. A lot of them are fixing behind the scenes. You can get a lot more done by making questions get asked by journalists. And if you create it from multiple directions at the same time through multiple journalists, then you create a kind of sense of crisis. We develop relationships, a lot about that, to get them to trust us.
Yeah, basically messaging on the following BDS is essentially kind of a hate group targeting Israel. They're anti-peace.
We try not to even use the term just because it builds their brand. We just refer to boycotters. The goal is to actually make things happen and to figure out what are the means of communication to do that.
In 2005, Palestinian civil rights groups sought a peaceful means to protest against Israel's occupation. They identified goods from Israel and called for their boycott. The BDS movement was born.
BDS adopted a nonviolent strategy because we think it is morally consistent and very effective against an enemy that is extremely powerful militarily. We called for boycotting Israel, divesting from it, and eventually imposing sanctions on it, as was done against apartheid South Africa, to achieve basic Palestinian rights under international law.
Over the past decade, BDS has grown around the world. By campaigning for Palestinian civil rights in land controlled by Israel, BDS believes it has exposed a deficiency in the moral defense of the Jewish state.
BDS is saying that what Israel has to do is treat the Palestinians in its midst the same way it treats Israeli Jews. The problem is that if Israel does that, there are more Palestinians, or there will be more Palestinians inside Greater Israel than there are Jews. And that means that if you had a system where everybody was treated equally and there was one person and one vote, that you would no longer have a Jewish state.
The secretive Ministry of Strategic Affairs, based in the Prime Minister's office in Jerusalem, was given a mission: establish a covert campaign to defeat the BDS movement.
אנחנו אחראים על המאבק בתופעה, ובמסגרת זו יש לנו 4 רגליים: התראה, הרתעה, התקפה והסברה. אז אני אגיד לך שכשאם אתה רוצה לנצח בניהול מערכה, אתה צריך לעשות את זה עם הרבה מאוד עמימות. כמו שכשעבדתי על סוגיות צבאיות כמו חיזבאללה או כספי טרור או סוריה או כל מדינה אחרת שאיתה בעבר ניהלתי מערכה מולה כקמן. לא הלכנו ואמרנו לצד השני מה אנחנו מתכוונים לעשות. השארנו אותו בעמימות.
Government ministers attacked me in person, one of them threatening BDS leaders with targeted civil assassination, and others threatening to revoke my permanent residency, along other threats.
לא מעטים מבין מנהיגי ה-BDS מקיימים קשרים כספיים, קשרים ארגוניים, קשרים אחרים, עם גורמים עוינים למדינת ישראל. תפקידנו, באמצעות הפעלת המודיעין, לחשוף את הקשרים האלה, ובהחלט באמצעות החשיפה הזאת, גם לדעת לפעול נגדם, לבודד אותם, גם להעביר מידע לאותם גורמים מודיעיניים בעולם וגורמים אחרים. ישראל חייבת לבצע סיכול אזרחי ממוקד במנהיגות ומול פעילי ה-BDS.
The campaign includes monitoring the activities of American students.
אנחנו עכשיו למשל נמצאים בתהליך שלם של ליצור תמונה כוללת על הקמפוסים. אם אתה רוצה לנצח תופעה, אתה צריך לדעת להיות עליה בעליונות במידע וידע.
Our investigation into the role of the Israeli state at US campuses led Tony to an employee at the embassy in Washington. She's American, and her job is to analyze BDS activity for the Israeli government.
So nobody really knows what we're doing, but mainly it's been a lot of research, monitoring BDS things and reporting it back to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and making sure everyone knows what's going on. They need a lot of research done and stuff like that. When they talk about it in Knesset, usually I've contributed to what the background information is. I'm not going to campuses. It's more about connecting organizations and campuses and providing resources and strategy if students need it.
Is the Israeli embassy trying to leverage faculty?
Yeah. We're working with several faculty advocacy groups that kind of train faculty, so we're helping them a little bit with funding, connections, bringing them to speak, having them speak to diplomats and people in the MFA that need this information. So I kind of want to be that resource to show students we should really see what you're doing. Here's some information if you need anything at all. We can connect to you, just kind of be that person there for you.
Julia was president of the pro-Israel group at Davis, which is part of the University of California. Davis began as a center for agricultural studies, and its students are known as Aggies.
I came to UC Davis, which had a reputation of being really pro-Israel. Now it's the top 5 most anti-Israel schools in the U.S.
Why is that?
Because of everything that happened in the last few years.
All right, so the main thing we want to show you with this is to show you that if they're doing this with and calling the BDS the anti-Israel Palestinian movement, and so how they're using covert efforts in order to gain information on these groups, how much greater would it be with the rhetoric or the information of what we're teaching? Not rhetoric, but the information and revelation of what we're teaching of who we are, which is in itself anti-Jewish or anti-Israel. Because they doing those covert levels or hitting things to gather information about these anti-Israel pro-Palestinian people. How much greater are they gathering information on the Israelite message that is in itself, by itself, anti-Israel, anti the state of Israel, anti-Israel occupation of the state of Israel? And look how they're doing. They're gathering information. They're checking social media. They're using all those platforms in order to gain information on the anti-Israel people of all. So if they're doing that on that scale, how much greater with black identity extremists, that they're using their means in order to gather information on us. And we giving it to them on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, all these type of things. We're just feeding with nothing but personal information about us, about where we stay, our families, what we've been doing the last 5 years, what we like. All the information is on there, right? So they can wage whatever type of war they desire to wage. And this is why I'm saying that we have to start moving a little bit more wiser in the things that we do, because we are. I just trying to show you information on smaller or bigger scale of us being watched overall, and for us to be mindful about those things. And all in all, like we talked, or like we did a teaching, it's nothing for us to be afraid about, because like I said, if our Most High be with us, who can be against us? And he knew before the foundation of the world that we would be in this predicament, in this situation, and already declared what he's going to do in us, declaring the end before the beginning. So we're not afraid in that type of sense. But we do need to be mindful of how to move. Just like the apostles, they was very mindful on how they moved. They used wisdom on what they did. From Paul to Peter to all of them. They just wasn't doing everything all willy-nilly. They was using wisdom in how they moved, what they did. So the government at that time couldn't cease them. Even when they was when Paul was caught and he was in the council of the Sanhedrin and different things of that nature, he used wisdom to pin the Pharisees and the Sadducees against each other, or either to neutralize them. You see, so it's a level of wisdom that we have to use in the midst of what we dealing with. You know what I'm saying? So it's extremely important and imperative that we learn from the past, so we can move in a greater fashion in the future. You know, we have to. So I'm gonna pull up this last piece that we're gonna deal with, and hopefully I can we're going to close out with this. So this is a list of every known FEMA camp and their locations. But I really want to get to the portion where it speaks on the a lot of the executive orders that's already out there, just waiting on a national crisis to happen. Let's see, can I scroll on down, or my computer acting slow? Okay, there we go. Now we're scrolling down. Let's see what we got here. Let's keep moving. For those that didn't know, let's read this. What is a FEMA camp? It's called the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Again, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. What is the Federal Emergency Management Agency? Simply put, it's the secret government. This is an agent that has powers and authority that will go beyond any other agency in the nation. What can FEMA camp do? It can suspend laws. It can move entire populations. It can arrest and detain citizens without a warrant, and it can hold them without trial. It can seize properties, food supplies, transportation systems, and it can even suspend the Constitution of the United States. When the first concept had been presented, its original mission was to assure the survivability of the United States government in the event of a nuclear attack. Its secondary function was to be a federal coordinating body during times of domestic disasters. These disasters consisted of earthquakes, floods, and hurricanes. The secret black helicopters that are reported throughout the U.S., mainly in West California, Washington, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and Colorado areas, are flown by FEMA personnel. It has been given a responsibility for many new national disasters such as forest fires, home heating emergencies, refugee situation, riots, emergency planning for nuclear and toxic incidents. It works together with the 6th Army in the West. Let's keep moving. A series of executive orders was used to create FEMA. It does not matter whether EO is constitutional or not. the emergency. It becomes law simply by being published in federal registries. These orders go around Congress. Let's keep going. There are 800 prison camps in the United States, all fully operational and ready to receive prisoners. They are all staffed and even surrounded by full-time guards, but they are all empty. These camps are to be operated by the FEMA. Should martial law, again, go look FEMA up and martial law up, need to be implemented in the United States. And all it would take is a presidential signature on proclamation and an attorney general signature on a warrant into which a list of names is attached. Ask yourself if you really want to be the asterisk on the asterisk list. Race 84 program was established on the reasoning, that is, of a mass exodus of illegal aliens across the Mexican borders. They would quickly be rounded up and detained in detention centers by FEMA. Res 84 allowed many military bases to be closed down and to be turned into prison. So the Res 84 was dealing with illegal aliens, but the King Alfred plan was dealing with Negroes specifically. Operational Cable Splice or Garden Plot are the two sub-programs which will be implemented once the REST program is initiated for its proper purpose. So you want to look up Operational Cable Splicer and Garden Plot. The Garden Plot is the program to control the population. Cable Splicer is the program for orderly takeover of the state and local governments by the federal government. FEMA is the executive arm of the common police state and thus will head up all the operation. The presidential executive orders already listed in the federal registry also are part of the legal framework. The camps all have railroad faculties as well as roads leading to and from the detention facilities. Many also have an airport nearby. The majority of the camps can house a population of 20,000 prisoners. Currently, the largest of these facilities is just outside the Fairbanks, Alaska. Alaskan facility is a massive mental health facility and can hold approximately 2 million people. Now let's review some of the executive orders. Executive orders associated with FEMA that will suspend the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. And these executive orders have been on record for nearly 30 years and could be enacted by the stroke of a pen. So this is telling us, please listen to this. These executive orders are already on the book. All it takes is a national crisis and it would be declared martial law by the president or the congressman, and FEMA would take over, and these executive orders would suspend the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. This is what I was telling you before, what they're preparing you for, that you have no constitutional rights. This is why this is happening with the police shootings. This is why this happened in New Orleans when all those things started happening when they had the flood, Katrina. All your constitutional rights, when martial law is enacted, these executive orders are already on the books, and the actual FEMA camps are already set up and staffed waiting on a problem. You see what I'm saying? So let's read some of them. Executive Order 10990. It allows the government to take over all modes of transportation and control of highways and seaports. This is why we got to look at that wall for more than just keeping people out, but it's also there to keep people in. Because this is an executive order. All transportation will be of government control, of FEMA control. You will not be able to get on these highways and just go where you want to go. Executive Order 10995 allows the government to seize and control the communication of media. So Facebook, social media, phones, they can shut all those systems down. Executive Order 10997 allows the government to take over all electrical power, gas, petroleum, fuels, and minerals. They're controlling all these things. Executive Order 10998 allows the government to seize all means of transportation, including personal cars, trucks, vehicles of any kind, and total control of all highways, seaports, and waterways. They can come in and take these things. Executive Order 10999 allows the government to come take over all food resources and farms. So this is why, you might have some people say, well, you shouldn't even be stocking food. You shouldn't worry about food. You shouldn't be there because they can come in and take it. You don't know when the time period. This is what I'm saying. And this is what I'm saying, why you must always prepare. And this is why it talks about the scripture, talking about I will hide you in times of famine. I will hide you in times of trouble. You don't know how much your family will be being fed when all these other things are taken away. Transportation, you can't get on the roads. You can't get on there. It might be the season of transportation for a year. And you have a resource of food stocked up to feed your family. Or have resources to feed family and friends up until the point where they can come in and seize it. So I wouldn't just look at that and say ain't no sense of doing that, because if they snatch this tomorrow and you can't go nowhere, you're going to be hungry. And you can be up to the 3 to 6 months not being able to have the food that you desire to have, because why? You didn't prepare for what's coming. So don't just take this and just say, well, they can snatch all our food anyway, ain't no sense of stocking up, because you can be completely wrong with that. Let's use wisdom in the end times. Executive Order 11,000 allows the government to mobilize civilians into work barricades under government supervision. Executive Order 11,001 allows the government to take over all health, education, and welfare functions. Executive Order 11,002 designates the Postmaster General to operate a national registration of all persons. We already remember that in the scriptures happening. Executive Order 11,003 allows the government to take over all airports, aircraft, including commercial aircraft. Executive Order 11,004 allows all the housing and finance authorities to relocate communities, build new houses with public funds, designate areas to be abandoned, and establish new locations for populations. That we already see this. This is another form of gentrification. Allows the housing and finance authority to come and relocate a whole community, to build new ones. Executive Order 11,005 allows the government to take control over railroads, inland waterways, and public storage facilities. Executive Order 11,051 specifies the responsibility of the Office of Emergency Planning and gives authorization to put all executive orders into effect in times of increased international tensions and economics or financial crisis. So this can happen if the dollar collapse. This can happen if a bomb or two or something like that gets shipped over here and we've been in a national crisis or things of that nature. This can happen. Executive Order 11,310 grants authority of the Department of Justice to enforce the plans to set out the executive orders, to institute industrial support, to establish judicial legislative liaisons, to control all aliens, to operate in penal and correctional institutions, and to advise and assist the president. Executive Order 11,049 assigns emergency preparedness function to federal departments and agencies, consolidating 21 operative executive orders issued about 15-year period. Executive Order 11,921 allows the Federal Emergency Preparedness Agency to develop plans to establish controls over the mechanisms of production and distribution of energy sources, wages, salaries, credit, and flow of money in the U.S. financial institution in any undefined national emergency. So they can dictate salaries, money, how much money you're going to be making, your credit, what that's going to do, giving out. The government can take control of all that. It also provides that when a state of emergency is declared by the president, Congress cannot review the actions for 6 months. The Federal Emergency Management Agency has broad powers in every aspect of the nation. General Frank Salzado, chief of FEMA's Civil Security Division, stated in 1983 conference that he saw FEMA's role as a new frontier in the protection of individual and government leaders from assassination and of civil and military installations from sabotage or attack, as well as prevention of dissident groups from gaining access to U.S. opinion or global audience in times of crisis. FEMA powers were consolidated by President Carter to incorporate the National Security Act of 1947, which allows strategic relocation of industry, services, governments, and other essential economic activities to rationalize requirements for manpower, resources, and production facilities. 1950 Defense Production Act gives the president sweeping powers over all aspects of the economy. The Act of August 29, 1916 authorizes the Secretary of the Army in time of war to take possession of any transportation system for transporting troops, materials, and any other purposes related to the emergency. And the National Emergency Economic Act enables the president to seize the property of a foreign country or national. The powers were transferred to FEMA in a sweeping consolidation. So, family, this is what I'm talking about. This is what we can be facing. And this is what's going on with this COINTELPRO. This is why we got to be praying, why we got to be aware, why we got to be sober, why we got to not be around here fussing and fighting over stupid stuff, because we got a massive beast war system that's against us all. And these things can be enacted. This is why it's time to be praying. It's time to be fasting. It's time to be seeking the Most High for direction, asking the Most High to use you and the prophetic, and to use you in dreams, and to give you dreams, and give you allow you to be in your light to shine in the end times. It's time to do that, y'all. It's time to be praying and seeking the Most High so we can get direction on what we should be doing and where we should be going and how we should be operating. So I wanted to give you this information on COINTELPRO. This was the last series of that. Hopefully this gives you a full understanding of what it is and what it's about, or it can launch your study where you can on the subject, where you can get more information and you can break more things down onto us to help us out as a nation overall. Because the more understanding, the more things we can add, the more we can prepare. Because we really need to not just know what the problem is, but like we said, have preparation of what we should be doing and what we should be preparing and how we should be prepared. So again, this is Brother Tekoa Malachi, Rebirth of a Nation. First we're going to awaken you, then we're going to restore you, then we're going to prepare you for prophetic end time events. Awaken, restore, prepare. That's what we're doing with COINTELPRO. And we pray Yah shine his face upon you and give you peace and destroy everything that comes to shake your peace. Because if Yah be with us, who can be against us? Shalom, shalom, and shalom.